All right, well into second year of Rupp Ballsgraff's Empire State Entrepreneurs, a New York business law podcast, a really fun and informative forum for us to showcase our great clients, strategic partners, and community leaders to talk about relevant issues for entrepreneurs and business owners throughout New York.
Wait, why am I here?
All right, you interrupted me. You took me off my game.
Wait, business, I mean, I'm not
business owners, community
leaders.
leaders.
I thought we were just talking about sports here.
We're going to get into sports for sure. But before we do, Michael Serotte, welcome to the show. Really
Thanks,
appreciative
man. Good to be here.
To have you here today. We're going to cover a wide range of topics. And before we do, special thanks, as always, go out to my good friends Mike and Eric and everyone here at Incept. They're so generous with allowing us to use this really one-of-a-kind podcast studio. We've loved our partnership over the years with Incept, and speaking with them this morning, it sounds like they're going to be really pushing our law firm in 2026 in new ways, and so we're excited to share those ways with some of our listeners over time next year as we get into year 3 of this fun podcast. And as I mentioned, Michael Serotte, dear friend, we go back a long way. Both have a lot in common in terms of our entrepreneurship.
Yes, I remember when neither of us had gray hair.
Including that, perhaps. And
by the way, thanks for giving me a non-transparent glass. This is really water, truly.
Michael's enjoying our little branded coffee mug that's filled with some sort of beverage, and but happy to welcome him here today and hear a little bit about his story and his journey of being a really one of a kind, and I think a world-class immigration lawyer. And I want to know how
we're supposed to have fun today, right? This is like the Joe Rogan show.
A little bit like that. And before we get to what you're doing today, or some of those fun topics that we were talking about involving Silicon Valley and AI and cloning and attention, I want to hear, and I think our listeners would benefit, Michael, a little bit about what brought you to this point and how your journey sort of began, where your roots were, what your parents were like. I know you're the son of an attorney, just like I was, but tell our listeners a little bit about sort of your formative years and growing up and all that good stuff.
Born and raised in Buffalo, New York. My father was an attorney. My grandfather actually was an attorney as well. Although neither of them practiced immigration law. There was a lawyer at my dad's firm who practiced immigration law, and I didn't really think much of it because, I mean, the border's sitting right there. We'd go into Canada, come back.
Right, go figure.
Yeah, I mean, and plus it really wasn't of interest to me because I would see these clients come in and speak to Billy, and they were speaking in Spanish or Hebrew or Russian. Had no interest in it, right? But I was always interested in finance, Wall Street, private equity, venture capital. Anyways, ended up going to the University of Miami. I graduated from there a long time ago.
The U.
Yeah, the U. And I was at the first national championship game against Nebraska, 40-yard line tickets. I would say my most memorable moment at the U was playing intramural basketball with Jim Kelly, or I should say, against Jim Kelly.
That's like a little-known fact about Michael Serotte. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, he was. I mean, we saw him play football here in Buffalo, and he wasn't the most athletic, but he jammed on me. I mean, granted, I'm like 5'9" at the most, and he's 6'3", but he went up high and boom. So that was my most memorable moment at the U. Worked 1 year, about a year and a half in accounting, Ernst & Whinney, and then a tax firm in Miami, and came back to Buffalo because my father got sick. He asked me, hey, look, if you're going to go to law school, I know you got into Miami, but why don't you try UB? And it'd be good to have you here. And it was great. I had an opportunity to work with him and be with him the last couple of years of his life, and I learned a lot. It taught me the value of life. Like, as much as we enjoy it, we have to always remember how short it is. And it can always be taken away.
Well said.
And I have lived my life knowing that, which irritates some people. But, it's the only life you got, and it taught me a great lesson, and I went through some difficult times for a little bit. Eventually came back to Buffalo in 1992 and got involved with immigration. I'm like, what? Immigration? It's like, what is immigration, right?
Did you get a chance to work with your father, or was it only during your law school?
It was only
tenure?
during my law school time.
So you graduate, and
I do remember a fond moment. It was August of 1984, and we were doing an adoption, and we were walking up the steps of the old courthouse. And he was only a few months away from passing away, but he stopped in the middle of the steps. It was a beautiful August day, 74. The sun was out, and he just looked at me and he said, "Look up, look at the sky. It's just a beautiful day to be alive, right?" And
what
it
perspective?
always resonated with me.
The fact that you've
day.
kept that with you is demonstrates the impact that it had on you as a young man at that time back in '84.
Yeah, so I was happy that I had those moments with him because he was a great man. But it was also a great teaching moment. Again, going back to life, and segueing into immigration. It was interesting because I thought it was basically illegals coming over the border. But when I got into it, it was a couple of things that interest me. One, there's a lot of business people involved, investors, entrepreneurs, and I like dealing with people like that. Number two, you didn't have to deal with the local legal stuff and maybe kowtowing and going to political events and contributing money, which a lot of lawyers have to do because that's the system.
Sure.
It was a federal practice, so it didn't matter what happened locally. The third thing that was really interesting to me from a business standpoint, and remember, David, I have an accounting and finance background, was it's a flat fee business. So what does that mean? Yeah, so, I personally don't like to keep track of my time, but as a lawyer, that's what we do. We sell our time. But in this business, if you can improve the process, improve the procedure, you have a great opportunity to either increase your profit margin or lower your price and capture more market share. So there's a real business to it, which is fascinating to me. And I sort of carry that on within our firm today. I always try to teach our lawyers and our senior paralegals, look, this is a business, right? And the better we are at doing what we do, the more capital we can maintain, which means we can expand and also pay more money to our team members. And that's important to me, right? We have to create an environment at the law firm that people learn, that they're compensated well, very well, and that they have a desire to do better, to keep thinking about how can we do this better. So.
We'll get into how transformative AI is making the practice of law in general, but in particular immigration. But before we get to that, because that's a topic I want to dive deep into, the formative years when you get out of law school, you sadly lost your father. You go where's your first job, and how does this thesis around?
I got fired from 4 jobs, not surprisingly.
We don't need to go through all of them, but like the
apparently I didn't take well to direction. People.
Why does that not surprise me?
It's like, what? No, that's bullshit. Come on, you can't do that.
So you developed this passion for the 3 reasons, which I think are good reasons why you got into immigration, but that happens pretty early on in your career. You're not doing insurance defense work. You're not,
No, actually, when I graduated, I stayed in Buffalo for a year. I worked at an old firm called Falk & Seymour.
Sure. Great old firm.
Yeah. Alvin Glick and Mahoney and a bunch of other guys, and they had me doing corporate business, some real estate. I got fired from that job too. Interestingly, I met a developer out in Chautauqua, and I was helping him put a financing deal together. I had friends on Wall Street, And I was working with the real estate partner, and then the senior guy comes in one day and he says, "This isn't working out." I said, "What do you mean it's not working out?" He says, "We can't have exposure. Are you putting together a condominium financing deal?" I said, "What are you talking about? I'm working with the real estate partner." He says, No, it's not working out, Serotte. You're going to have to leave." I said, "You're firing me?"
I mean, early lessons, right?
It's like, oh well, okay. I guess corporate law doesn't fit well.
Did you leave? You left?
Yeah, I left Buffalo. I actually took a job in real estate development down in Tampa, St.
I don't
Peter.
think I know. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I wanted to get out. I was a little disillusioned with law at that point, and I was like real estate. Took a job with a development company that was based out of Albany, New York, but it had an office in St. Petersburg, and we were building multifamily apartments. I didn't know anything about hammering nails, but on the financial and development side.
More strengths.
Yeah, it was fun.
And interests.
And
yeah.
I remember 1987, it was my first cell phone. And it was like this piece of metal box that they screwed underneath the seat with a cord and a phone, right? And so I would drive around looking at sites and doing market research, because back then we didn't have the internet, and we certainly didn't have AI. So you had to actually use your sneakers and go in and pretend you're going to be renting apartments 100%. To get market survey. Yeah, that was fun. But another memorable moment in my time in St. Petersburg was Motorola came out with the flip phone.
Right.
And so I was one of the first to get
dramatic development.
Yeah, not the big one, but it was like a flip phone. And I remember I was single, going to a bar and putting the phone on the top of the bar, and then,
people wonder what the
women
hell that
would
was.
come over. It's like, what's that?
It was a good entry point for sure. When you're in Florida doing sort of finance, real estate development, you still have this sort of on the back burner, but thought that immigration or your sort of connections to finance and ability to think about a flat fee approach to the practice of law versus a traditional bill by the hour approach. Do you begin to refine that thesis, or how is it that you first start?
Not really, because
immigration
wasn't really in the thought. Right? It was about real estate, finance. The market tanked in 90, I think it was. I moved briefly to Chicago. That didn't work out. Didn't like it too much. Eventually
too
moved,
cold.
Yeah, it was a tough market. I didn't want to practice law. I was looking at real estate. The real estate market was not good. Eventually, I moved to Washington, D.C., got a job at a law firm, closing real estate deals. And the lawyer was good friends with NV Homes, and that was the company that eventually ended up buying Ryan Homes, which is, I think, one of the largest in the Buffalo.
For sure.
And we would be just closing real estate deals, home deals. Pretty boring, but it was a process. And it was the first time that I understood really the value of improving processes to make it faster for the client and also profit margins, right? The faster you close a deal, the less time 100%. You invest in it, the more margin you get. That's, again, my accounting and finance background. And then I left that. This is another interesting story. I was really kind of disillusioned at that point. But, I had to make some money, so I ended up waiting on tables, which, honestly, David, was probably the best experience in terms of, if I can say, growth. Taught me humility.
Such an important quality for a leader.
People will look at you because of a position and think about you differently. They don't get to know you, right? Oh, you're a waiter. What do you know, right? I mean, here I was building $10 million projects a couple of years ago. I was a lawyer and accountant waiting on tables, which is perfectly fine if you have to make money. But these people, not a lot, but enough of them would just look at you like...
And this is in D.C. still?
Yeah, this was in D.C. So I thought that was really formidable. It taught me humility, and I think that's important, especially like in immigration, right? Because you have these people coming from all over the world, coming to America for education, to build their dreams, to build their company, to be with their loved one. And we as Americans, born and raised here, have no idea what it's like to live anyplace else. We go there on vacations and stuff like that. It's not the same. And America, as I've learned over the years, is still this shining light to a significant majority of the population around the world. The freedoms that it offers from
Opportunities.
economics, opportunities, religion, right? It's crazy.
Second to none,
I mean,
for
your
sure.
family probably came from someplace. My family escaped Tsarist Russia. Unfortunately, many people didn't. But yeah, all that came sort of together when I came back to Buffalo in '92.
92 was when you
I
first came back to
yeah.
Buffalo then? Okay.
Yeah, and started working in immigration. And it was just like,
Where was that start? On your own? or-
No, it was with my father's former partner, Billy Reich, who taught me a lot. It was a great firm. Billy, Mark Kenmore, Jerry Sipe, Tony Barone.
Focusing mainly on immigration.
All they did was immigration. So it was a great intellectual group of people, brilliant lawyers. Billy was a very smart businessman, and I learned what immigration was, and I also learned about the business of immigration. And, unfortunately, Billy liked to take and keep control of his firm. He didn't know how to grow partners.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I mean, after 5 years, I left, and it's been a great ride.
You launched, so you, in the late 90s, you launched.
Yeah, and it was April
Serotte
1st,
Law.
1997.
Was when
April Fool's Day.
was the first day that Serotte Law was in existence.
Yeah, I was living in
Oh,
Kenmore. I had a little computer sitting in my basement. I had 5
Incredible.
clients.
Incredible.
And interestingly, and I remember sitting there with Billy, okay, we're leaving. Here are these 7 clients. We agreed that we would pitch the 7 clients individually and let them all go, choose. They all went with me, thank goodness. One of them, Lev, right? That was the reason why I got into Silicon Valley. And this is a wonderful story. I think it's a great story. So, and this is, to me, the uniqueness about immigration law. The relationship that you have with your client is very, very different than most lawyer clients.
I believe that.
Yeah. Because
What's at stake?
Exactly. It's
Right.
what's at stake. And I remember meeting Lev. He had called me because I did a case for his wife's business in Rochester. And at the time in 1994, I think I was still working with Billy, he had a sister who had cerebral palsy. She was a permanent resident, and she was at a home in Rochester, and it was expensive, and the government was paying for it. And then there was a change in the law that said you had to be an American citizen in order to get
Interesting.
these subsidies. And at the time, Lev was just a working man in telecom, right? So we had to get her to become an American citizen. So normally, it's pretty easy. You answer 20 questions about American history and government. You have to demonstrate the ability to read and write English. But because of her disability, she couldn't talk very well. She would mumble words. And her hands, she would be like this, right? So the law says communicate, right? Answer questions and communicate. So how do you answer the questions? So we came up with an idea. Remember the old Ouija boards?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I can't remember her name. I remember Lev's, but we designed it so that she'd come in, he would ask a question. Who's the first president of the United States? G, E, she'd point to all the letters. Great. And then, can you write C spot run? So again, she would point to the letters and then dribble over here, but it was clear that she understood what she was doing. She was a
The
very
English
smart woman.
language, sure.
Yeah. Now, these exams take about 15, 20 minutes. That's it normally. This was 2 hours into this exam.
Wow.
Yeah. And just by chance, the week before, I was at a gym and I ran in to this particular immigration officer. And we worked out together. So there was that little connection, right? And we're sitting there for 2 hours. And Mr. Newman says to me, Mr. Serotte, I mean, I don't know if I can approve this.
It's close, right?
And Lev's sitting there, and she's sitting there, and I'm like, well, Mr. Newman, I said, she's answering the questions correctly, right? He says, yeah. And she's clearly understanding what you're saying, right? And she can mumble the words, and you know when she points to it, you know what you're, yeah, but it's not communicating the way we're used to communicating. And I'm at this, like, block. How do I convince this guy, right? So I look out the window. It was one of these beautiful May days, literally. It was like, again, 72,
quintessential,
sunny, quintessential Buffalo,
right?
No rain,
right?
The window was open, and I looked outside and I said, "Mr. Newman," he goes, "Yeah." I says, "Look outside." He looks outside and he said, "Isn't it a beautiful day?" He looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, it's a beautiful day." And I go, "Isn't it a beautiful day to become an American citizen?" And he cracks up. He goes, "All right." He says, "Fair enough." And he approves it. And it ends up being a precedent case. It ended up going to Washington, and they developed a policy for developmentally disabled individuals.
That's remarkable, Michael. I didn't know that. I know Lev from you, but I didn't know that was sort of the early beginnings of the relationship, and how strong a relationship it is today is in part based on...
And to go full circle, so a couple of years when I left Billy to form my own firm, Lev came with me. He was doing a new company, a startup called Lightspeed. Lev was a Russian immigrant, brilliant. He was a computer science engineer. And what he developed was what they call a universal protocol converter. So in the old days, when the internet was just expanding, you might remember all these companies were laying cable across the ocean to transmit data. So in layman's terms, when you take data from the United States or voice from the United States, it has to convert to a protocol. And then you ship it over to England. They have to reconvert it. And then if you send the same data to Germany, you have to convert it, right? So you'd have to go to Bell Labs and buy a piece of equipment for about $2.5 million in each destination. So it was very expensive to transmit data. Lev invented what they call the universal protocol converter. So the data would go into this chip, and it would a circuit, right? And it would convert it to the protocol at the destination. So it was software. So he started this company called Lightspeed, and about
pretty cool.
2 years later, sold it. He raised $12 million. He sold it for $183 million of Cisco stock, which a year and a half, 2 years later, was worth $1.2 billion, right?
Incredible
Needless
story.
to say, Lev, did very well.
Incredible story.
So that created this kind of, and during this time when I was representing the company, I really didn't have much interaction with Lev. But afterwards, when he sold the company and left Cisco, we became great friends. And then we went fishing together. I knew his daughter since they were 7. One of them ended up going to WashU, became an engineer. She went out to San Francisco. She teamed up with a Romanian girl who was at Stanford to start a company, right? And they were StartX's second cohort. Now, StartX is basically Stanford's accelerator program. Started by this guy, Cameron Tiedelman, who's a friend of mine now. So this was their second cohort. And Lev calls me one day and he goes, "Look, I need your help." What? He's like, "Stephanie's got this co-founder, who's not getting good answers on her immigration. She's going to get kicked out of the country. Can you help them?"
Do your thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, sure, sure, I'll help Stephanie. Talk to them. And we came up with a pretty creative solution. And we solved Anda's problem. And eventually she continued to grow the company, and I'm still friends with her. But as a result, and Anda being somewhat of a star even by Stanford measurements, she introduced me to StartX. And then StartX said, "Well, okay, Anda says you guys are pretty good. We'd like to meet you." So we fly out to StartX. Well, we'd like to consider you to be our immigration counsel. So they vetted me, David, and I remember they asked for like 5 different client referrals, and they would call them up. And at that point, we were one of maybe 4 immigration firms at StartX.
A little Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, and
going out to
today we're the
Silicon
only
Valley.
immigration firm at StartX. We still partner
Remarkable.
with them. We're going out there in a couple of weeks.
It's incredible, Michael.
But that literally was the seed. And, it just, before then, we were representing these big companies out of Canada, investors, entrepreneurs, border cases. And all of a sudden, this whole world opened up because it was, hey, I got a problem. By the way, I have money because I just raised $5 million. I got to hire this person or I got to stay in the country, solve the problem. And it was just my kind of environment.
When you were telling the story about Lev and his sister,
Probably said too much.
I was almost going to use the phrase you just used, which is a problem solver, and it sort of transcends. It's our role as attorneys or as a lawyer to do problem solving, but think of it as a business owner or an entrepreneur or Lev or anybody, Lev's daughter. Like ultimately, I admire that. Like the project you did for Lev's sister wasn't a sexy project, or it wasn't going to put you on the front page of the news or anything like that. But you knew that it was critically important to a dear friend and a client who could open up doors, and so you did something very unique, and it was not something you read about in a textbook or that
no, and that literally was the start.
Like
I had at the time he was working for MCI Communications, I think it was. So I didn't have any idea that he would start a company a couple years later, and then that would lead me to Silicon Valley, where I got a partnership in a venture capital firm. I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy, actually.
From this, little guy in Buffalo, New York, doing immigration work, and now the firm is well known in Silicon Valley to South. And we work with big firms out there who refer clients to us. And every day I'm getting 3 or 4 referrals from other startup founders. And the stuff that I see is just fantastic. And I could sit here and talk about technology, and most of my friends who are like you, leading firms and companies, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? What is this shit?
Let's get into that, but I want to get into tech. But before we do so, 30 years, going on 30 years, an
30
incredible
years.
run for Serotte Law. How do you feel today about sort of the pace of change in tech? I guess this will lead into tech, but could you have ever imagined, Michael, looking back to 1997 when you launched on April 1st when you launched Serotte Law, to what you're doing today and sort of this non-traditional approach? It's very different than what Billy Reich was doing, or your dad, or my dad as an estate and trust lawyer in town, or even big firms in town. But look at how Serotte is sort of a symbolic of opportunity, or get out of your own way and take some chances or risks. I mean, do you think, for our entrepreneurial leaders and listeners, lessons learned over those 30 years? I mean, could you ever have imagined where you're sitting today compared to where you were back then?
No. I still sort of joke about being one of the little leading immigration firms in Silicon Valley, and I'm still based in Buffalo. Right?
That's amazing. I love it. I love it, actually.
But, that's technology, too. If it wasn't for the internet, if it wasn't for applications like Zoom, email, text messaging, and everything else, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. I mean, can you imagine sending faxes and doing phone calls? People want instantaneous responsiveness. They want to see you. They still want that personal interaction. And we couldn't do that. I mean, there was a point where I was going out to San Francisco every 2 months for like 10 days. And, you would meet people.
Right.
And people wanted to meet you. And you would solidify that relationship through that interpersonal connection. And then they develop that trust. And then when you solve their problems and their employees' problems, they just continue to grow. And the immigrant community, like every community, has their own circles. So they refer other people to you, which is same here.
For sure.
I would have never envisioned that happening.
the platform you've built, this incredible Serotte Law that is, knee deep in Silicon Valley and New York City and elsewhere. It's also, I think, and this again is something I admire about what you're doing, but it's allowed you to be even more entrepreneurial when it comes to things like Unshackled Ventures or doing business with clients like Lev.
Well,
Tell our listeners a little bit about your excitement or enthusiasm for jumping into deals.
Let's talk about entrepreneurs. I think this is important. And you know this as well. As crazy as I am and as outwardly facing I am, the firm, which currently has 30 employees, is all we do is immigration, would not be successful where it is today, but for my partner, Rita. And you know Rita very well.
100%.
I mean, she voluntarily sort of took the operational aspect of the business that allowed us to plant seeds in these different geographic regions and grow the business. I think when you look at some of the great organizations today, every founder had that operational person.
Excellent point.
Who kept everything. I mean, Jobs had, I can't think of the guy's name, but Cook.
Right, while you're out
Steve
chasing
Cook.
Someone to
Right.
implement and execute.
I mean,
so
even
important.
in fashion, Calvin Klein had his operational guy. I mean, so as much as you might want to design things, and this is what we talk about often, it's like, I mean, shit happens all the time, and you have to be able to adapt. And often, my first reaction might not be the right one. Having those partners that you can trust, Rita Raghavan and a few other key people at the firm, to be able to bounce back ideas and often bring them back, right? Okay, let's come back to earth, Michael.
Right. And your gut, isn't always right. Certainly no one's is, but go ahead.
I was going to say, even today we talked about AI. Like I think the law practice, particularly immigration, is going in a direction. And I'll tell you where. To me, AI sort of not evens the playing field, but narrows it from wider margins because it makes the not so good lawyers a little better, and it makes and that means that the really good lawyers, come back to not
get
the median,
marginalized a little bit,
right?
sure.
They're competing at a different level because AI gives those individuals access to information very quickly, and even though it's not always right, you got to do your homework. And it's amazing how many lawyers use AI to build their petitions and applications, and it's crap because they don't do their homework. So where does that leave us, right? And I have been pushing this in my firm. There are two aspects to it. There's the AI. So who's going to be successful? The people who use this new tool, who understand it, embrace it, and understand how to manipulate it to our advantage, and to the client's advantage. The other one's hospitality, right? If you compete on price, you're going to be a race to the bottom. But if you compete on service, that's a distinguishing factor. And I still believe that humans are people, and they want that interaction. They want that trust. They don't necessarily trust AI. They use it as a tool. So I've been pushing hospitality. Don't send 3 emails. If the first and second one doesn't work, pick up the phone and call the client.
Great advice.
Every time we sign up a new client, we do an onboarding. It's a team of 3 people and the client on a Zoom meeting, and we go 30 to 45 minutes asking all the questions using an application that records everything and then transfers it into a summary. Right?
Wow.
It's just... So to me, technology is this wonderful tool, but you still have to focus on the client relationship, which is something that you've always done very well. I mean, I know you're the managing partner of a firm with, 200 employees. And when I text you at 9 o'clock at night or 8 in the morning or 6 in the morning about a new client, you're there.
I appreciate that. I share your values and the importance of client service is still relevant in our profession.
You ever get to this where you say, one of your employees, partners or lawyers come to you and say, I can't get this person to understand what I'm saying. It's like, well, have you picked up the phone and called them? No, I sent them 4 emails. Well, one of 2 things are going on here. One is the language you're using, they don't understand. 2 is maybe they're just too busy and they can't respond. So pick up the phone and call them. Call them? Yes, call them. There's a phone here. Everyone has one of these. Text them, call them. Hey, it's amazing what happens when you actually speak to. Oh,
Couldn't agree more.
I get it now.
Couldn't agree more. And it seems like that art is, not embraced by all. That
No.
skill is not embraced by all. So I applaud you, Michael, for teaching and mentoring your lawyers to say that there is still the need to do that client service,
There's
that client
this weird
touch.
divide amongst the generations about interacting with humans, right? There's like this generation that grew up and they didn't really interact. I think the younger, what is it, the new generation, what is that, like the 20,
Right, the
25?
beyond millennial. Or
They're
whatever.
great. Yeah, they're great. They're coming into the office. They want to work. They don't mind picking up the phone and calling people. We're used to it because this is how we started, and people, we like people, and people are fun, and frankly, I enjoy the fact of we get to help somebody. At the end of the day, when we're able to deliver a successful solution, it still makes me feel pretty good. You can't be in immigration unless you have some level of feelings.
And you think, and we've talked a little bit about the impact of AI, and you think immigration, the practice of law in general, but immigration in particular, could be really disruptive in a great way if it's embraced and
Well, you see that. So there are companies out there that have been VC funded that are trying to hack the immigration system.
I think one of the 43 North winners, someone told me, was some
Yes.
sort of tech
So,
immigration tech disruptor thing.
Right, platforms, AI, just talk to it. It'll create your petition in whatever. And there's a lot of competition out there. And then you're getting into this sort of price war, right? And the clients a lot of the clients that come to me will say, yeah, they ended up doing a decent job, but I couldn't get anybody on the phone. It would take them 2 days to respond to me. And this goes back to the hospitality thing. And this is what I try to push upon our firm. So the, hospitality, it's the difference between going into the Four Seasons Hotel versus the Motel 6. I mean, they serve a segment of the marketplace, but our clients, a majority of our clients, which are the Silicon Valley startups, they're getting a $3 million seed round, a $10 million seed round. Just had a client got a $100 million Series A. I mean, it's the money's out there, and it's such a race, and it's all about talent, right? And so these founders want people who respond quickly, solve their problems, move on to the next one, right? And just be available like you are.
Be accessible, be accountable, be responsive.
Before I like that. That's good.
Before I let you go, we got a couple.
Oh, we're done?
No, not yet. A couple more topics I wanted to touch on. One is
Bills.
The bill. We could talk forever about our beloved bills, but no, you're passionate about your profession. You obviously have built this, one of a kind law firm that's integrated in Silicon Valley and around the world, really, Michael. But I also respect and admire you for having passions that go outside the practice of law. Your great relationship with Rita, a person I love and admire a ton, but physical
I know,
fitness.
David, you wouldn't be friends with me but for Rita.
That's
you
true,
and all of our
actually.
other friends in Buffalo is like, Serotte, if you and Rita break up, we're going with Rita. So, I mean, yeah.
All right, that's well said. Might be true, but physical fitness and your strong personal relationships and friendships. This mountain climbing excursion, which I think is totally insane. But I want our listeners to hear, like, why doing things other than your core business or being a great immigration lawyer. Okay, fine. Been there, done that. But tell our listeners about why you think getting involved in other, challenges or things outside your core business has been important to you over the years.
By nature, I'm a competitive person.
You think?
I think
a little, maybe. Right.
I think people like us hate to lose more than we like to win.
I'm cut from that exact cloth.
I know.
That's
and
exactly how I feel.
And it does. And I used to play soccer and basketball. I got to a point where I knew what I wanted to do from a strategic and mental standpoint, but my body just couldn't do it, and I was very frustrated about that. Right. So other than working out, I needed to find something, right? What did I like to do? And I don't really like to swim, so the whole Ironman stuff
wasn't.
I know.
First,
Rappel says, Serotte, you just go in the water, you can float and stuff like that. It's not that I can't swim.
It just wasn't at the top of the list.
Yeah, it's not one of those exercises that I particularly like. But again, stemming from relationships, coming from immigration, and all the work that we did at Stanford comes from one individual, or seeded from one individual, Rene Morcos. He was 20 some odd years younger than me. Funny story, we met on the phone. We ended up going out to San Francisco. He introduced us a bunch of people at Stanford. Our relationship there grew, and Rene and I had a lot in common. And I said to him one day, "Hey, look, if you ever think about getting a house outside of where you are now, let me know, because we're coming out here. Why stay in a hotel? Might as well just share a house." And I remember he told me afterwards, he's like, "I don't know if I want to share a house with this old guy. I mean, he's probably going to tell me to go to sleep at 9 o'clock or some shit like that." Yeah. And anyways, we got a house in Bernal Heights in San Francisco, and it was about a 7-year run. It was great. And he got me into a lot of different activities, and one of them is mountaineering. He knew we would go running in the woods, and I would keep up with him, if not surpass him every once in a while. And he's like, "What is wrong with you?" It's like, "I don't know, I'm just competitive." So he calls me up when he got me to go to Burning Man.
Right, which I'm familiar with, but never attended. So.
Which apparently
I'm not sure it's on my bucket list, but we can write.
Yeah, it was like talk to some of these founders. Wait, you went to Burning Man? I said, "Yeah, I went to Burning Man." Needless to say, Rita is still not happy about that. Nothing happened, Rita. Nothing. I absorbed the atmosphere. But he calls me up one day and he says, "Hey, I got into this mountaineering stuff. Why don't you climb Rainier with me?" And I'm like, "What's Rainier?" He's like, "It's this 14,500
pretty serious
feet mountain,
climb, right?"
And I'm like, "Well, okay, why not?" So I started training with it, and I remember he said to me, on summit day, we're going to hit about 12,500 feet. It'll be 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you will see the most magnificent sunrise you've ever seen in your entire life. And sure enough, we got up at 1, we started summiting at 2. We got to around 4:30, 4:45. We took our break, and I'm eating a candy bar because you got to keep eating when you're going up there. And he said, "Look," and it was absolutely spectacular. Like the
Remarkable.
entire. I've shown you the pictures, but the horizon was just you see this orange line, and then it just sort of kept growing.
One of a kind.
It was great, and then. It's physically hard. It's mentally and physically hard. But again, there was a summit, there was a goal, just like in sports, and we got up to the top. The altitude didn't bother me at the time, and it was just like, wow.
I like this.
It was just great. So then went down. I'm thinking, like, what else can I do? And he goes like, "Well, you want to do Denali one day and maybe Everest?" I don't know. It's like, well, at least Denali. He says, "You should go do Orizaba," which is this 18,500 peak glacier in Mexico. So I'm doing that in January.
That's amazing. Amazing.
What I really like about it, though,
18,500.
Yeah, I know. I mean, listen, Everest is 29,032 feet. I don't know about Everest, but the training to go into climbing and to do it effectively is very different from what I've used to in terms of working out. So the fact that there's a goal and there's a pattern that I have to continue to do, to me, that's like my competitive game, right? Get on a treadmill, go for 2 hours, hike with a backpack for 40 pounds out in the woods with Bella, my dog.
It's different than lifting weights with Jensen and Renzoni.
Yeah, it's much different. You still have to do some lower body stuff.
But it's more of that type of training.
Personally, I can't say that I haven't felt this good from a physical standpoint, in 10 years.
That's great, Michael.
So I keep looking at that this picture of Orizaba, right? I don't know. Did I show you this?
When you January? What part of January? It's a beautiful, beautiful photograph. Damn. Are you and that's on your horizon. That's January.
Yeah.
That's not far away.
Yeah.
January hopefully 15th, won't miss any of the Bills playoff games.
Well, I looked at the schedule, and I was going to miss like the divisional and championship game and see the Super Bowl, or the other way. And I figured this is the year we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, perfect.
Of course, every year I figure we're going to win the Super Bowl, and my kids are like getting sick of it already. It's like, Dad, I'm just betting the opposite way, so I may miss a game.
Tell me, so we'll begin to sort of call it a day here and wrap it up, and I so appreciate your time, Michael. But as you think about sort of what's next, or what does the future hold? You've obviously done a shit ton in your profession, and
I think there's
climb mountains literally, and so what does the future look like or hold for you?
I love the business change.
You're still passionate, still in the trenches.
Yeah,
still,
I think
building still.
What I've always envisioned, all right, is the ability to transfer the knowledge that we've gained as a firm, and this is everybody, and convey it to clients at a lower cost, right? Because there's a lot of people who can't necessarily afford the full service, right? But that shouldn't prohibit them from getting the best that they possibly can versus going to somebody who's
great point.
Bad and screws up their case and perhaps risk getting kicked out of the country or risk not being able to build their business. And we see this. You see other lawyers. I mean, listen, there's a scale. There's 100 lawyers. There's somebody at the bottom and somebody at the top. Well, if you're unlucky enough to pick somebody in the lower 50%, you may not get the result that you're looking for. So now with the technology that's available, one of our challenges is how do we take this information and make it available to the public at a much lower cost where they can also benefit? I would love to be able to say, hey, look, happy to provide you the service. It costs you $15,000. However, if you're, but you can do it yourself here, right? And it's much less. Well, why would I pay you the $15,000? Well, some people will value their time more than others. It's right. It's cost benefit.
Sure.
And they want the lawyer, but other people have more free time and they'd rather save the money, which is
and use the app or use the
use the thing. So there's a lot of competition out there trying to build stuff like this. I mean, you see this what we call these A01 mills. I think the competitive advantage that we have is this IP. And it's all sitting there in our servers, right? It's a matter of transferring that into the ability to communicate to a client in an effective way. So that to me is exciting.
Well, it seems like you're as passionate today as you were.
I got to find a mountain to climb somewhere. I can't imagine just sitting on my ass reading the Wall Street Journal and playing golf or something.
That does not surprise me. So look, Michael, thank you for your time today. Look for great things, both from your firm, but also from you personally climbing mountains, and thank you for inspiring me.
Yeah,
and,
but
and
David, let's remember
motivational.
something.
Appreciate
You
it.
just finished the Ironman. So
I have.
I mean,
I've got my sights
yeah,
on
I'm not
full.
the only one who's competitive in this room here.
We'll get there both. We have goals.
Plus, aren't
and
you
let's
like the
achieve
best
those.
senior squash player? Are you a
Old
senior
man
now?
squash player? Probably. Yeah, 55 and counting. Well, thank you again, Michael. I appreciate your time.
Thanks,
today.
David. That was fun.
That was great.